Assalamu alaikum. I hope you all are safe and healthy. Welcome to Nasra Public School online teaching system. Our today's topic is cell and cell theory. For this topic, the learning objectives are to explain the definition of cell, to explain the discovery of cell by scientists, to describe the theory of cell. Let's start our lecture by defining a cell. The word cell is originated from a Latin word cello, which means a small room. The cell is the basic structural, functional, and biological unit of all known organisms. A cell is the smallest unit of life. Cells are often called the building blocks of life. The study of cells is called cell biology, cellular biology, or cytology. This is the first microscopic diagram of a cork cell. Robert Hooke sketched these cork cells as they appeared under a simple light microscope. When he looked at a thin slice of cork under his microscope, he was surprised to see what looked like a honeycomb. Hooke made the drawing in the figure below to show what he saw. As you can see, the cork was made up of many tiny units, which Hooke called cells. Now let's move to the video. It will definitely explain you more about cell.
We all love reading storybooks. Every story is framed with sentences, and sentences are framed using words. And what are words made up of? They are made up of letters. If you notice, then everything around us is made up of one or the other smaller entity. These small entities are called basic units. Did you know that even our body is made up of basic units? Yes, it is. Although it appears to be one single body, it's actually made up of millions of basic units coming together. What are these units called? They are known as cells. Cells come in different numbers to form a body, rather, any living organism's body. Can you guess the minimum number of cells required to form an organism's body? Do you know the answer? There are organisms which are made up of only a single cell. They are called the unicellular organisms. Bacteria are one of the best examples of this category. What are organisms like us called then? We belong to the category of multicellular organisms. Those having several cells to make up the body are called multicellular organisms. Now the next important question is, if there are so many cells in our body, then are all of them exactly the same? Of course not. There are many number of cells in our body, and so are their types. Look at these cells, for example. These look so different. But astonishingly, all three are a part of our body. This one is an ovum, this is a neuron, and the last one is a red blood cell. Their structures, shapes, sizes are totally different from each other, and so are their functions. This is how various types of cells come together in different numbers to form our body. We have this knowledge today, but ever wondered how all this was actually discovered? Let us go back in time and have a look at the history of cellular studies.
Hope it may have helped you. Now let's move forward to the discovery of cell. Following are the scientists who have contributed to the discovery of the cell. Robert Hooke. In 1665, he observed cork and called the little boxes he saw cells. Picture of Robert Hooke. The first time the word cell was used to refer to these tiny units of life was in 1665 by a British scientist named Robert Hooke. Hooke was one of the earliest scientists to study living things under a microscope. The microscopes of his day were not very strong, but Hooke was still able to make an important discovery. Picture of Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Soon after Robert Hooke discovered cells in Cork, Antony van Leeuwenhoek in Holland made other important discoveries using a microscope. Leeuwenhoek made his own microscope lenses, and he was so good at it that his microscope was more powerful than other microscopes of his day. In fact, Leeuwenhoek's microscope was almost as strong as modern light microscopes. Using his microscope, Leeuwenhoek was the first person to observe human cells and bacteria. Robert Brown. In 1831, he discovered nucleus within the cell. While watching the process of pollen grains fertilizing a plant, he noticed that there were ovals inside the plant cells and the pollen was moving in and out of the ovals. He realized that ovals were of great importance to the cells and called them the nucleus of the cell. The nucleus, as we clearly know now, is like the brain of the cell that contains DNA and directs everything that takes place in the cell. Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann, and Virchow. In 1838, they developed the cell theory. By the early 1800s, scientists had observed the cells of many different organisms. These observations led two German scientists named Theodor Schwann and Matthias Jakob Schleiden to propose that cells are the basic building blocks of all living things. Around 1850, a German doctor named Rudolf Virchow was studying cells under a microscope when he happened to see them dividing and forming new cells. He realized that living cells produce new cells through division. Based on this realization, Virchow proposed that living cells arise only from other living cells. Let's move to another video. Here we go.
This worker is building this beautiful house. So what is a house made up of? A house is made up of several walls. And what is a wall made up of? A wall is made up of individual bricks. So bricks are the building blocks of the house. Similarly, all living organisms, be it human beings, animals, or plants, are made up of various organs like these. Human beings have organs such as heart, brain, lungs, and the plants have organs such as the leaf, the stems, and the roots. Now these organs are in turn made up of individual units known as cells. So animals are made up of animal cells and plants are made up of plant cells. So cells are present in all living organisms, be it human beings, plants, or animals. So cells make up the entire organisms. Just like individual bricks are of no use, but a number of bricks together helps in building a house. Similarly, a large number of cells together forms the human body. Now, can you guess the number of cells that are present in our human body? 10,000? 100,000? No. We have 100 trillion cells in our human body. Now, have you ever wondered what we are all made of? All living organisms, be it plants, animals, or human beings, are made up of cells. They come in thousands of shapes and sizes. There are about 100 trillion cells in our body, all carrying out the dance of life. So let us now come and explore cells.
Now let's move forward to the cell theory. By the late 1830s, botanist Matthias Schleiden and zoologist Theodor Schwann were studying tissues and proposed the unified cell theory. The unified cell theory states that all living things are composed of one or more cells. The cell is the basic unit of life, and new cells arise from existing cells. Rudolf Virchow later made important contributions to this theory. The three important points of the modified cell theory are as follows. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living organisms. All living organisms are made up of cells. All cells arise from pre-existing cells. An electron microscope produced this image of the structures inside a cell. The figure shows how the cell structures called organelles appear when scanned by an electron microscope. Can you identify these cells? The left one is the animal cell and the right one is a plant cell. Let's take a quick review. So students, you have learned about the cell, its discovery, and also the cell theory. Now, you are able to define the definition of cell, outline the history of the development of cell theory from its origin with Robert Hooke to the present. Describe how cell theory is an explanation for life. Thank you.